In the heart of the Baltic, a battle against nature began. To uncover the truth of that fateful night,
in the pitch-black hours of September 28, 1994, a towering wave struck the bow of the MS Estonia. Deep inside the hull, a metallic crash echoed through the corridors. To most of the 989 souls on board, it sounded like a heavy container shifting in the cargo hold. To the officers on the bridge, the indicators showed the bow visor was locked securely in place. They were wronged. Within 14 minutes, the 55-ton steel visor had been ripped entirely from the ship's nose, falling into the ocean and exposing the open car deck to the Baltic Sea. Thousands of tons of icy water surged directly into the hull. The ship violently listed 30 degrees in a matter of seconds. Furniture slid across floors, stairwells became vertical traps, and total power failed, plunging hundreds into pitch-black darkness as the ocean swallowed the vessel. In less than an hour, the MS Estonia would vanish beneath the surface, taking 852 lives with it. It remains Europe's deadliest peacetime shipwreck since the Titanic. But the tragedy of the Estonia is not merely a story of bad weather or structural failure. It is the story of a fatal design compromise, hidden in plain sight for 2 decades, and a catastrophic chain of decisions that transformed a routine crossing into an unavoidable tomb. If you believe history's greatest disasters deserve to be remembered through rigorous detail rather than sensationalism, subscribe to Keel and Current. We bring you weekly deep dives into the engineering failures and human stories behind the world's most devastating maritime tragedies. To understand why 852 people could not escape the Estonia, we have to go back to the drawing board and look at the structural gamble that made the ship possible. In the late 1970s, European maritime transit was undergoing a revolution driven by a single demand: speed. Traditional passenger liners were inefficient for freight and vehicle transport. The industry's answer was the roll-on roll-off ferry, or ro-ro. The design was brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of loading cargo from above using cranes, semi-trucks and passenger cars could drive directly into the stern and out through the bow. To achieve this, shipbuilders designed a heavy external shell on the front of the ship called a bow visor. When parked at the pier, the visor hinged upward like a helmet, allowing an internal ramp to lower onto the dock. Built in 1980 at the Papenburg shipyard in Germany, the ship that would become the MS Estonia was engineered specifically for protected coastal waters, the short, relatively calm routes between Finland and Sweden. But ro-ro vessels carried an inherent, terrifying engineering flaw known to naval architects as the free surface effect. Because the vehicle deck was essentially a massive, unbroken open hull extending from bow to stern, any water entering the ship would spread across the entire width of the floor. Without internal bulkheads to divide the liquid, even a shallow layer of water sloshing to one side could instantly capsize an 11,000-ton vessel. For 14 years, the ship operated safely in sheltered coastal conditions. But in 1993, following the collapse of the Soviet Union, the ferry was sold to a joint Swedish-Estonian company, renamed the MS Estonia, and assigned to a new route: the open, brutal waters of the Baltic Sea. On the evening of September 27, 1994, the MS Estonia prepared to depart Tallinn for an overnight crossing to Stockholm. Among the passengers was Silver Lind, a 24-year-old Estonian deckhand who had spent months working the Tallinn-Stockholm line. By several accounts, Lind was meticulous about his routines, familiar with every corridor and structural groan of the vessel. That evening, as he prepared for his duty watch, the weather was worsening rapidly. Autumn gale-force winds were sweeping in from the southwest, pushing waves to heights over 5 meters. On board were 989 people, whole families returning from vacation, retirees on weekend cruises, truck drivers delivering freight, and a crew that believed their vessel was more than capable of handling an autumn gale. At 7:15 p.m., the Estonia backed away from the pier. She was running slightly behind schedule, and her captain pushed the 4 massive diesel engines to maintain speed against the headwind. Down on the lower vehicle deck, deckhand Lind and his colleagues secured the heavy transport trucks with steel chains. Above them, in the passenger quarters, hundreds went to sleep in windowless cabins situated on Deck 1, below the vehicle deck, deep inside the waterline. As the Estonia hit the open ocean, the pitch of the waves grew violent. Water slammed against the bow with the force of demolition explosives. But inside the vessel, passengers accepted the rough motion as a routine part of a storm crossing. They had no idea that every wave hitting the bow was transferring metric tons of pressure directly onto 2 small steel locking bolts holding the bow visor closed. Most accounts of maritime disasters blame sudden, unpredicted rogue waves or catastrophic human panics. But the official international investigation into the Estonia revealed a far more disturbing systemic reality, one that most documentaries overlook. The bow visor on the Estonia was never designed to withstand the open sea. When naval architects calculated the required strength of the visor locks in the late 1970s, the design regulations assumed the ship would operate in coastal waves, where hydrodynamic pressure was low. The load-bearing capacity of the steel locking pins was calculated based on static weight, not the dynamic, hammering force of a raging sea. Even worse was the bridge indicator system. The lights on the bridge instrument panel only monitored whether the locking bolts were extended, not whether the visor itself was physically attached to the ship or structural integrity was holding. Shortly after midnight, as the Estonia battered through the waves, deckhand Silver Lind was conducting his hourly safety patrol on the vehicle deck. Around 1:00 a.m., as he approached the front of the ship, he heard a metallic bang, a sound like heavy steel hitting steel. Lind notified the bridge via radio. The officers checked the control panel. The green indicator lights glowed steady. According to the instruments, the door was secure. No one was sent to inspect the bow from the outside, and the ship continued forward at full speed, 15 knots directly into the storm. Driven by the ship's full engine power, every wave was acting as a hydraulic ram, slamming against the inside of the visor hood and shearing the steel locking pins piece by piece. At 1:15 a.m., the final locking bolt snapped. Under the immense weight of the incoming sea, the 55-ton bow visor torn completely free from its hinges. As it fell forward, it acted like a crowbar, ripping open the inner ramp door that stood between the ocean and the vehicle deck. The sea had full, unobstructed access to the open hull. Thousands of gallons of water poured onto the car deck every second. The free surface effect took hold instantly. The sheer weight of the rushing water sloshed to the starboard side as the ship rolled, creating a sudden, violent 15-degree list. Inside the lower decks, sleeping passengers were thrown from their berths. Suitcases, furniture, and heavy machinery tore loose, pinning people against walls. On Deck 1, deep beneath the car deck, passengers heard the terrifying sound of water rushing into the corridors behind the cabin bulkheads. Silver Lind was on Deck 4 when the ship heeled over violently. He clung to a handrail as the floor tilted like a steep roof. On the bridge, the officers realized the severity of the list, but they still could not see the bow from their windows. Believing the list was caused by cargo shifting, they made a fatal error. They turned the ship to port and adjusted engine speed, unintentionally directing the open bow further into the force of the waves. Water poured in faster. Within 8 minutes, the list reached 40 degrees. Next week, we investigate the chilling mystery of the USS Kursk, the nuclear submarine disaster that saw 23 survivors trapped in a dark, flooded compartment waiting for a rescue that came too late. Make sure you're subscribed to Keel Current so you don't miss that story when it drops. By 1:20 a.m., the MS Estonia was lying on its side at a 60-degree angle. Total electrical power failed. The main lights flickered out, leaving hundreds of people trapped in absolute darkness inside a labyrinth of tilted corridors. Because the ship listed so rapidly, gravity transformed stairwells into vertical drop shafts. For those on Deck 1, Reaching the upper open decks required climbing 4 flights of flat metal walls against the pull of gravity and rushing water. Out of nearly 1,000 people on board, fewer than 300 managed to reach the exterior open decks. Among them was Silver Lind. Using his intimate knowledge of the vessel's layout, Lind clawed his way up the stairwells, pulling himself through an exterior door onto the slippery, vertical side of the hull. But escaping the interior was only half the battle. The emergency lifeboats could not be launched. The extreme tilt rendered the davits completely useless. Crew members and passengers fought in the freezing wind to manually detach inflatable rubber life rafts, throwing them into the churning water 30 feet below. At 1:22 a.m., the bridge issued a desperate, fragmented distress call. "Mayday, Estonia. We have a listing of 20-30 degrees." At 1:50 a.m., 45 minutes after the visor broke free, the stern of the MS Estonia lifted into the air. The ship slipped backward into the cold depths of the Baltic Sea, settling on the seabed 80 meters below. Hundreds of survivors were left floating in 50-degree ocean water in pitch darkness, battered by 12-foot waves and sub-zero air temperatures. By the time nearby rescue ferries and Swedish military helicopters arrived on scene hours later, hypothermia had already claimed most of those who survived the initial sinking. Of the 989 people on board, only 137 survived. Silver Lind was among them. 852 perished, most of them trapped inside the hull where they slept. The sinking of the MS Estonia sent shockwaves through the global maritime industry, triggering one of the most complex joint international investigations in history. Widely reported findings by the Swedish, Finnish, and Estonian Joint Accident Commission concluded that the disaster was caused by a fatal combination of design flaws: locking bolts that were far too weak, a lack of visual sensors on the bridge, and a dangerous row-row layout that lacked internal watertight bulkheads on the vehicle deck. The disaster changed international maritime safety standards forever. The International Maritime Organization immediately mandated strict new safety codes for all ro-ro vessels worldwide. Today, all bow visors are fitted with redundant secondary locking systems, direct video monitoring systems on the bridge, and internal watertight doors across vehicle decks to prevent the free surface effect. Rather than raising the vessel, a decision that caused intense political debate, the governments of Sweden, Finland, and Estonia declared the wreck site a sacred maritime burial ground, protected by international treaty. Today, 80 meters below the dark surface of the Baltic, the MS Estonia remains where she sank, protected by law, a silent tomb for 852 souls, and a permanent warning written in steel about the cost of compromising with the sea.